then I started eating food and watching the movie, and then they start eating human. I was like, oh my God, like.
Sabemos dónde estamos.
Drive-by movies, you're watching
Fresh releases.
My name's Blaze.
And my name is James.
And this week we're talking about Netflix's brand new original film, Society of the Snow.
Netflix's new film, The Society of the Snow, is about the flight of a rugby team that crashes on a glacier in the Andes. The few passengers who survived the crash find themselves in one of the world's toughest environments to survive. So coming off of last year, a big surprise for me last year was January is always kind of the tough month for us trying to find content to put out for you guys out on here, just because there's a lot of award season movies to go with, but there's also a lot of big action movies or family movies coming out, and we don't like going to the theaters a whole lot, honestly. So it's always rough finding movies, and we're always kind of focusing on streaming movies. And one of the big surprises last year was 13 Lives on Amazon Prime, a movie I thought should have got so many awards and so many nominees, a very underrated film that I still think about a lot to this day. And survival movies aren't really my thing. Or just like any kind of based on a true story, I always kind of think like, I'm not really into these style movies. But after 13 Lives and now this movie, this is a genre that I just like love now, honestly. I love this movie. What are your thoughts on it, Blaze?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. And I thought it's funny because this movie definitely, like, I rode that emotional roller coaster. And I even, like, before starting this up, I'm like, I know this is going to be good. Like, I know that JA Bayona like directed The Impossible, and I also love that movie. I think that's a really excellent movie that doesn't get the amount of credit that it deserves. And I feel like a lot of people maybe kind of forgot about that movie or maybe didn't check it out when it came out. But that was one that I saw in theaters, and that was a crazy survival disaster style movie, but really well done. And I knew that he was going to take that same approach when it came to this movie, which was a story that we were both familiar with, because funny enough, we talked about this on one of our previous video series called The Movie, where we would take like ideas for movies and just kind of spin them off as if, what if we were going to take a fun new idea and kind of pitch the movie to each other. But anyways, James, you can probably elaborate on that because this was one of your movies.
Yeah, so our whole idea with that show was just basically if we were producers or writers in Hollywood, and we just were trying to come up with the next big original thing that hasn't been made into a Hollywood film yet. What would make a great story? How would we pitch it to the studio? What actors or director would we want to bring into it? We'd always try to get in depth as possible within a movie and kind of build this fake movie as best as we could, as if we were actually trying to get it made and stuff. And this was one that I put in some development into. A lot of them were kind of stuff that were like IPs that we were already aware of, like example, like Extreme Dinosaurs, a toy line, and that was a cartoon. But every once in a while we'd come up with just an original idea. We're just like, this would make a great idea for a movie. And as a kid, I always remember my dad telling me about this story of this rugby team that crashed in the Andes, and they had to resort to, unfortunately, cannibalism in order to survive. And at the time, I thought it was like a soccer team, I think. And I even said that, I think, in the video, too. But yeah, if you're interested, we'll link it for sure. But yeah, I pitched my idea for the movie and how I thought it'd be a great award season movie. It'd be riveting drama and, some really intense sequences of suspense as well. And that's what we got out of this movie. Like, JA Bayona, he's a director. I've seen all his movies, actually. He's not what I'd say like a director I think of as like an amazing director, because I did like The Impossible, but I've only seen it the one time. I did like The Orphanage. It wasn't as amazing as I thought everyone else made it out to be, but it's still a very well made movie. And Fallen Kingdom is actually one of the best looking Jurassic Park movies, despite that movie being awful. But it's not his fault, though. I'd blame the script overall in that movie. But just I really appreciate his effort within this movie, you know, and I appreciate that Netflix made this movie too. Like, we're joking around like, oh, I guess Netflix watched our video. Not that that video has like tons of views and a lot of people were begging for that movie, but you know, it's just fun to think that we were pitching this as a movie and just a few years later we get this awesome movie out of it.
Yeah, and to give a little bit of credit, at least this story was already a movie called Alive, and I think we both at the time when you kind of pitched this idea, we didn't know that that was even a movie. So Hollywood was always like a 8 to 15 steps ahead of us, but at the time we were like, oh, this is like a good idea. And then, you know, when we saw the trailer for this, or when we had heard about this one, it was like, oh wow, like that's so funny. Like we were just joking, like, oh yeah, they watched our video, that's why they created this movie. Of course we're joking and being sarcastic, but we always thought that this was going to be a great story, and I really think that JA Bayona gave it the sincerity, and I think that that's what I love the most about this. Like I think that it takes you on a real emotional roller coaster, and it plays the themes of religion really well in this film, because that was an element where, like, obviously not as a religious person, I'm not even thinking about that element, but this film really utilized it because a lot of the passengers and survivors were, you know, really big Catholics. So, you know, the sin of, obviously, you know, cannibalism is a real big sin, and they were worried about like the quandary about going to, are they going to go to hell if they consume another being, even if it is just to survive? Like that was, you know, honestly a really interesting premise, and that really did like float a lot of this movie. I think beyond just the, you know, the act of survivalism and the fact that these are the harshest conditions pretty much known that anyone's survived in before. There's literally no wildlife, no plant life. There's literally nothing that you could survive on. They just happen to have the exact conditions that could basically preserve the dead to be in a sense where they could still be consumed in a way. And it was just essentially, I guess, meat. It's really dark. It's a really dark subject. And honestly, the whole time I kept dreading, like, because I kind of forgot, like, going into this, even that cannibalism was part of the story. I honestly forgot that was even like the whole pitch. And once we get to that part, and I'm just like, oh no, is that going to be what this whole movie is about? Is it going to be some Hills Have Eyes it or something? And I thought it was done with enough sincerity to make it, you know, just really, really well done.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to, you know, the sense of faith, like also me not really being a religious person too. It's just, I really appreciated that sense of family too. You know, this is a team, and just the fact that, you know, like a lot of them are saying, hey, you're the older ones here. You need to set an example for the younger ones who are going to lose their faith, because who has faith in a situation like that? You're just like, we just saw so many people die, like people we know and stuff, and how are we going to survive? And just like the sense of just like, you know, we have to focus on, you know, keeping each other together and stuff, and that sense of family, despite them being, you know, a team, really felt like it. Despite there being so many characters, each character is still developed very well. Like, you know, I'm not the best with names and stuff, but following each character was very easy to do within this movie. Very well paced for a 2-hour, 20-minute movie. Flew by. Again, I'm saying it constantly. As long as your movie is really good, I don't care if the runtime is that long, just because this movie floated by. Like 13 Lives as well, too. That was also like a 2-hour, 20-minute movie. As long as you got the right subject and, you know, you pace it well, that's all that matters. Because watching this movie, I just felt so bad. Like, 30 minutes in, I was just like, I paused and I was like, there's an hour and 45 minutes left. Like, I'm already like freaking out and stuff. And I was cold as hell watching this movie in my apartment. I was like all wrapped in a blanket. Then I'm seeing these people freeze to death. I'm like, oh, I should not be complaining right now. Then I started eating food and watching the movie, and then they start eating human. I was like, oh my God, like, oh my God, I'm such a, like, I feel like such a rich, privileged boy right now watching this movie. Yeah.
Do you think it was the movie though? Because I honestly got hungry during part of it, not because of the content, but I think it was just the time in which I started. It was like kind of about to get to dinner. I'm like starting to get hungry, and then I was like, I can't eat right now. I just feel sick.
Yeah. Like, no, because I was eating a bagel and cream cheese, and then that was right when they started eating human meat. And you know, it's not very graphic. I mean, as for a movie about cannibalism, the movie's like shot very like tastefully, I guess you could say.
I don't know. This film is, in my opinion, the film is very gruesome and shot very gruesome, but at the same time, you're right. He did take aspect, like you could have gone, the hills have eyes route with the butchering, but I mean, there are elements where there is butchering, but he does it almost from the perspective of certain characters and from the group. In the beginning, it's the two brothers that are dismantling the bodies and kind of systematically. And the whole effort, they knew had to be systematic. I guess a lot of them, I don't know if they had survival experience beforehand, but it feels like it because they knew, we have to limit and ration everything. Even when they're just rationing the food that they found in that first day, they made what little food lasts an entire week, which is already crazy. It was just like a couple chocolate bars and lint, I guess. I'm not really sure. Not lint chocolate, but just like lint, like the fuzz. But yeah, like, oh man, this film, I felt like it just did such a good job of telling us an excellent story that I would say few know, but is probably one of the most harrowing survival experiences that any humans have ever experienced.
Yeah, and I'm glad that this movie just kind of paced it very well and showed us like as much as possible within this movie, just because a lot of us know this story, but I bet a lot of people don't know every aspect of it. I didn't know that two people had to leave the airplane to go find it. They were on their own for 10 days climbing up a mountain. Like, that's already hard enough, climbing up the mountain in freezing temperature and spending the night out there. And, they weren't even like on a proper location to set up camp. They just dug snow, and that was enough to, sleep on right there, and building sleeping bags, just like seeing everything just come to life. Like, I couldn't have asked for a better movie, I guess you could say, especially for a movie that I did want to see, the years ago that we came out with that video for our show. But yeah, this is just a great movie. I hope it gets like all the nominees. I'm not sure if it is. I see it's doing well in Letterboxd, and it's I think it was the #2 movie of this past week. So it's awesome to hear, because I hope more people keep watching this movie. It's fantastic.
Definitely. Yeah, I have to say, I mean, I think everyone has Netflix nowadays. If you don't, what are you doing? Come on, get Netflix, watch this movie. I don't know if I hope that it hits some award season buzz, but I know the Golden Globes was just last night and I didn't hear anything about it. I also didn't watch Golden Globes, but all I heard was a lot about Jeremy Allen White and the bear. And
I heard only things about the host, the comedian, and how bad
Joe
he was,
Coy.
Apparently. Yeah.
Yeah,
or dude, never heard of him, and then first I hear it's just like he's a hack.
He bombed, apparently. I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, I guess check this movie out. Honestly, like, what are you doing? This is honestly one of the best movies of the year. I think did this come out in January though? That might be with a problem, right? There was no release. Was there at least maybe an LA drop like beforehand, do you think? Maybe
I'm sure it's playing in a couple Lemley theaters here in LA. It might even be playing at the Egyptian Theater because Netflix owns that. But I know that I think they only handle the weekends and then the weekday. No, I think Netflix actually handles the weekdays and the weekends handled by a company called American Cinematheque. If you're in LA, you know what that is if you're a big movie lover. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to look around, but it was nice watching this from the comfort of my own home. I did have to pause it a lot because I'm privileged and got to use the bathroom while watching it and felt more guilty.
You pee black, right?
Black, I know, right? Exactly, yeah. But yeah, fantastic movie. It's on Netflix. It's easy to watch. Sorry to my mom and sister who used to use my account and now no longer can because they live in the Bay Area while I live in Los Angeles. I'm not spending $7 extra person when I already spend like $25 for my 4K account or whatever. F you, Netflix, but you're the best way too. So so go ahead and watch the movie. It's on Netflix if you have your own account, and then come back here, leave a comment, let us know what you thought about the movie.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all the latest updates.
And speaking of updates, be sure to catch all our social media links down below. We got Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and we also have our own personal Letterboxd accounts. That'll conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for a brand new video.